All right. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for everyone who's here joining us tonight. My name is Lisa Partida with Home Again LA, and tonight we have Tom Fuentes with Banc of California, and we're going to be talking about your income and expenses. So it's pretty straightforward, but I would like to ask you guys all, if it's your first time joining us, just keep your questions until the very end. We will allow some time for you guys to go ahead and ask those questions. And I'll go ahead and pass it along to Tom.
Thanks, Lisa. So tonight we have your income and expenses. This one's actually pretty quick and straightforward. There's only 35 slides. The bulk of the conversation is gonna be income in the first section and expenses on the other section. So we're gonna discuss different types of income, ways you receive income, how to read and understand a pay statement. A little bit about that though, because that's gonna be in the participant guide section, but we'll touch on it briefly, and how to keep track of your income. The key takeaway for the first section is to understand your income. It's the first step to using it so that you can meet your needs. And then in the middle, we're going to talk about the differences between needs, wants, and then obligations are the third category of that. So first off, what is income? Income is money that you receive. Can anyone think of different types of income? I would say paycheck would be the first one. We'll talk about it in the middle section, but what about receiving income from hobbies, which we'll touch on briefly. Other things that could be considered income is like money that's left over after you've used your grants and scholarships if you were to go to college. Another type of income could be considered maybe money that you receive as a gift, things like that. So just think of income as money that comes in. So we have earned income, right? This is what you earn by working, whether it be wages or it could be like tips. Say that you're a waitress at a restaurant. Someone leaves you a tip, that's money that comes in. Another thing would be like contractual work. Maybe you are a writer and you get paid per story that you write. Another thing would be like if you own your own business, self-employment perhaps. Other types of income can come in the way of assets or investments. Think about income like this in the sense that maybe you own like a stock or a mutual fund, and that stock or mutual fund pays a dividend. That dividend that you receive on a monthly or quarterly basis that comes back to you would be considered earned income. Another type would be public benefits. Think about this in the sense of maybe like SSDI, like Social Security Disability Insurance, or even like Supplemental Security Income, SSI. It's important to understand any benefits that you may receive. We're going to get into it in a moment, or on the second section, specifically about public benefits and how it can affect your income. Other benefits or other entitlements, income that possibly you receive in the form of maybe like food, public transportation. It's not really income that goes into your wallet, but it's money that doesn't come out of it because you're receiving it either subsidized or perhaps for free altogether. So even though you're not paid in cash for the benefit, you can be considered a source of income because you're not having to pay for it out of pocket. Other examples of this kind of thing, maybe like childcare subsidies, transit subsidies, maybe like housing assistance or like utility assistance. Like I know Home Again does like utility assistance, even though that's not like money that you're paying for out of your pocket. That's something that you're getting in the form of help. Other types of income can be considered. We already kind of touched on it. Like I mentioned, you receive a gift for your birthday or for Christmas, for example. Another type of other income that could be in that category would be something like child support or alimony. Gross and net income. So the income you take home is generally less than earned income that you make from working. So gross income is your total income without any deductions. Net income, on the other hand, is gross minus deductions, such as like Social Security income taxes. So net income is what you have to save, share, and spend. Net income is also called like your take home pay. If you owe money to creditors, sometimes they'll take money directly from your income. This is known as like a wage garnishment. It generally happens as a result of like a court order. Um, you have another thing that's account garnishment. This is money that's automatically taken out of your checking account, for example, for debts that you owe. Um, let's not get into treasury offset. It's a little technical. We'll skip that for now. What are ways you can be paid money? So there's several different ways in which you can have money come in. And this is an example of something that's going to be in the participant guide that you can do after the workshop. So in the participant guide for this one, um, there's going to be in the participant guide a couple of different pages in there on ways that you can receive income, whether it be in the form of cash or like a paper check from your employer. And then there's pros and cons of each. So really quickly, so you can get the idea of it, right? So received income in the form of cash. Well, what's the pro of that? Well, I have it tangibly in my hand and I can go spend it at the store, no questions asked. That's an easy pro. What's an easy con? I lose it. I forgot to put the $20 bill in my wallet. I put it in my pocket. I got in the car to go get gas and it fell out of my pocket and it's totally gone now and I don't have it. Right. Now compare that cash benefit, that cash con to a paper check, for example. Now, the con of a paper check, where the pro of cash is that you can go spend that cash in the store. If you have a paper check made payable to you, you can't go use that to go buy something at the store because it's made payable for you. So that's a con, right? What's the pro though? The pro it goes right off of the con of the cash, meaning that if you lose your paper check, the submitter of the check can put a stop payment on it and they can reissue you the check. So feel free to, after the workshop, go through, think of some pros and cons for both, fill them out, and it may kind of um, have you understand a little bit better and maybe identify some things that you didn't think of in the first place. So ways to receive income. So we'll identify some, we are kind of already identified pros and cons between cash and paper check, right? Let's talk about direct deposit real quick. So the nice thing about direct deposit specifically would be something that you can set up through your employer, right? It's often the fastest and safest way to get paid because it's automatically credited to your account, right? Funds are usually available immediately. So if we go back to a con on the participant guide for paper check, if your employer writes a check out to you and you try to negotiate it at the bank has the ability to put that check on a hold. Now, there's holds for different various reasons. It could be maybe you have non-sufficient funds in your account often. It could be that you open the account like brand new. Often banks, when you're a new customer, they'll put holds on your checks for like the first 60 days, for example. One way to avoid that would be the direct deposit method. Automatically goes into your account with no holds. The other cool thing about direct deposit, you can split it between multiple accounts. When I get paid on Fridays, I have a majority of it go into my checking account with a very small portion of it going to a savings account. Another thing is that some financial institutions may waive some account fees associated with negotiating your payment. For example, there's going to be some, as you kind of see here with the phone icon, there's going to be like those payday now apps and stuff like that that will charge you fees. Well, direct deposit straight to a banking institution would take care of that, right? There's other things called payroll cards, which I'm not too familiar with, but it's an option where an employer can load your pay onto a card. Okay, that's also kind of done now in the form of a tax return. Some tax return companies will load your tax return refund onto a card for you to spend it. Um, the other thing is electronic benefits transfer offer often referred to as EBT cards, safer and more secure than carrying cash and checks. Depending on the state, you're able to track spending online and know your current balance in forms of receipts for when you use your card. Understanding pay statements. So um, if you work at a job where you receive a pay statement, you can get it, and you can actually get this in the form that if you still get a paper check, like you detach it to go take the check to the bank, but the other side of it is your pay stub with all this information on it, personal identifying information, pay period, pay date, so on and so forth. The other thing that you can do too, at least because like with my company, I have direct deposit, I can log into our payroll tracking system. And even though on Fridays I get the money sent directly to my account, my pay stub is on that payroll tracking system, so I can go and look at it. And sometimes I look at it depending on whether or not you say have 401k contributions coming out for retirement, or maybe they change your benefits and medical costs a little bit more, or vision costs a little bit more. Um, the other benefit of looking at it too is whether or not you have infrequent hours to make sure that the hours that you submitted for that pay period were tracked accurately. So it kind of just helps you monitor for accuracy, right? So don't put it in the hands of your HR department to that they're doing their job perfectly. You'll want to review it for the purposes that you actually get paid the 40 hours that you work that week, or 80 hours, or how, depending on how frequently you get paid. Um, One thing I will say, in knowing this immediately as I'm currently in the process of doing my taxes, I've been looking over pay statements for myself as well as my W-2s. Don't get me wrong, they can be a little intimidating. There's a whole bunch of different categories and boxes that have information like your personal information. You want to review this to make sure that your name and address is correct, right? Um, Pay period. Is the time that you're working within that pay period sufficient? Did the HR make a mistake, right? Pay date, the date you received the net pay. There's often a delay between the end of pay period and the pay date. Make sure these are accurate. Is your gross pay correct? Right? How much money you earned during that pay period? The pay statement will also show you. Uh, it's more often where on the left hand side it's your current pay, and on the right hand side it'll have your year to date numbers. Make sure you check that. Like I was saying, make sure your deductions are accurate. Social Security, Medicare, federal and state income taxes. We'll talk about that actually in a different section. I want to bring the state income tax up because I have a story relevant that I'm going through right now. Um, Anyhow, or retirement contributions like a 401k, make sure those deductions are accurate, right? Net pay, the amount that you receive after all deductions are taken care of, your take home pay, right? Is that accurate according to what the deductions were? Do you have any employer contributions, and are those correct? For example, like 401k could be matched by your employer, 4-to-1 match, 8-to-1 match. Make sure that that's accurate. The other thing that's not on the slide here that I want to bring up, make sure that the balances of your paid time off are correct. Okay. And read your employee handbook to make sure you're accruing the necessary paid time off and sick time for the amount of seniority that you have at work. I'll give you an example. At my work, it's tiered. So if you've worked here for 5 years, you get so amount of hours. If you work 10 years, and you accrue at a different pace, right? One thing that's going to be on your pay stub is going to be your balances of all your time off. Make sure you're accruing that accurately, and make sure you know how much you have. That way, you're not surprised if you want to ask for a day off in a couple of weeks, or you want to take a vacation in a couple of months, okay? So deductions, portion of your pay statement are going to have several items on those. One of those being FICA, um, Federal Insurance Contributions Act. is what the acronym is what it stands for. These taxes are set by law and are a fixed percentage of your wages. FICA taxes include two items, as you see here: Social Security deduction and Medicare deduction. Social Security deduction is often sometimes referred to as OASDI or SS for short. The Medicare deduction sometimes shortened down to FICA Med, FICA-MED, or just Med. Medicare contributions help pay for Medicare. That's the health insurance program that you can take advantage of when you're, I forget the age, in your 60s, 65 or 67, I believe. I can't remember, 65, 67. Taxes also include federal income tax, right? State income tax of where you work, and then any local income tax that you accrue based on where you live. So it's three-tiered, right? You could have community tax or local tax, your state tax, and then your federal tax, right? There's also elective voluntary deductions such as insurance premiums that may come out, whether or not you have any retirement contributions, whether or not you're a part of a union. Union dues will be taken straight out. Oftentimes, your workplace will have the ability for you to take charitable contributions straight out. For example, we often sometimes have the ability to take charitable contributions to the United Way right out of our paychecks, right? Your income tax withholding, this is that little short story I wanted to share when we were talking about the income taxes. Before your employer withholds federal, state, or local income taxes, you're tasked with completing a W-4. Now, again, for the purposes of our financial literacy workshops, I by no means am an expert. I want you to consult with like your tax person or whoever it is that does your financial stuff. But this is an important one that my wife and I were faced with last year or a couple years ago when she started a new job. Look, I've been with my company for 15 years. I haven't done a W-4 in 15 years. I forgot how to do it. I completely forgot. And now they make you fill it out on your own, which I didn't know about. Like I was on YouTube trying to figure this stuff out. I was Googling it, right? And I still don't quite know if I fully understand. But here's the point of what I'm trying to say here. You need to make sure that you're withholding the proper amount from your taxes so that you avoid owing taxes at the end of the year. So here's that little brief story I'll tell you. I'm currently doing our taxes. I don't have all my documents yet to complete them. But when I started doing them, I was a little surprised at how much I owed the state. And when I saw the number, it made me realize that we did the W-4 incorrectly and that we didn't have withholdings come out enough to cover our California income tax bill. And now I owe. So please research the W-4 thing. I can't provide you the expertise necessary. I fully admit to you now that I made a mistake in the beginning and now I'm suffering for it because I'm going to have to pay state income taxes. So I found resources on YouTube and online that kind of helped us fill it out. You can also go to irs.gov where you can view W-4 examples, and you can also review W-2 examples for help. So I highly suggest going to irs.gov for those purposes. But I really wanted to hit home here. Make sure you're withholding enough so that you don't owe when you file taxes. And on the flip side of that, make sure that you're not withholding too much because then you're just going to have money come out of your pocket quite literally because your paycheck is less and you're just deferring that to get a bigger tax refund at the end of the year. So this one's a tricky one. Please do due diligence to figure that one out, okay? Now, we kind of went over the pay stub very quickly, but in the participant guide after the workshop, feel free to complete on page 8 of the participant guide the scenario with Janice, where she's trying to understand her pay stub. The other thing I'll mention too with this, get your own pay stub and go through this scenario to try to understand um, what it's being asked of you to fill out in the participant guide for this scenario. And it may help you understand your pay stub a little easier too, because there's going to be some questions in there where you have to fill in amounts. And on the right hand side of the chart, I don't think it's, oh, it is here. Okay, cool. Yeah. So there's going to be amounts that you have to fill in with where did you find that on the pay stub, and it can help you a little bit more easily understand your own pay stub. Okay. So here's the thing that we referred to a little bit a while ago, the idea of received income coming in. It just doesn't have to be from your full-time job, right? Um, One of the things I always bring up with this workshop is my stepmom. So she works a full-time job. She's a teacher, but she also runs her own side business. She's a baker. She sells cakes and confectionaries on the side, and that's money that comes in. So you could quite literally get paid um, for your hobby. You know, sometimes people often refer to it as like gig economy too, where it is, as an example, like say Tim has a full-time job at an Amazon warehouse, but it just so happens that on his spare time, on nights and on weekends, he drives Uber, right? So income can come in from several different sources. Um, the one thing I will say about this, however, though, is in the example that I gave for like my stepmom, because she has a really good side bakery business, she actually has her own like business license. Like she pays taxes on the money that comes in for that. So one thing I will try to make clear is that with money coming in, the government wants their cut. So just don't think that as a hobby, maybe I can shelter that from having to pay taxes. Another example of this is Tim. Tim, who works in Amazon, he's going to get a W-2 from his job working at the Amazon warehouse, but he's going to get a 1099 from Uber, okay, that he's going to have to pay taxes on. Here's another thing I want to mention too. I often sell things on eBay, just cleaning out my closet, trying to get rid of stuff like spring cleaning. When you sell stuff on Amazon or eBay, you're going to get a 1099. The IRS wants their cut of taxes based on the money that you're making selling those items. So please make sure that you're aware of it and you understand the tax implications as it relates to your paid hobby or the gig, the side gig that you're monetizing, okay? Tracking your income. So many people receive income from like a whole bunch of different sources, right? So for example, you may have one job, you could receive public benefits, you may drive Uber on the side, you may get $100 bill and a Christmas card or like a birthday card or whatever, right? So making a list could be appropriate. One thing I'll say too is that if this money is going into your checking account, one thing that we were talking about a couple of weeks ago in that intro, like banking 101 thing, where we were trying to understand the mechanics of a checking account, you can track all of your incoming money on a check register. The other way that you can do it is that after you put the money in your account, you can download your statement and then you can track the money that's coming in. It's another way. Um, but the reason that we bring this up is to understand the difference between regular and unpredictable income. So like regular income is just money that you receive from your paycheck. It could be money that you receive from Social Security. It's money that comes in on a monthly basis that you know that you're going to get. Unpredictable income is where the tracking kind of comes in, right? Where the income can vary. Like we get used Tim as an example, who has that full-time job at Amazon but drives Uber on the side. That Uber, that's unpredictable income. He may go out on a Saturday to do it. He may not do it for 4 more weeks and then go out on a random Tuesday and do it, right? The other type is seasonal. Um, it could be based on where you're located. Let's use the Uber thing as an example. Right now, um, we currently went through a big, uh, what do they call it? Atmospheric river. The weather has been really bad in Southern California, from San Diego up to the Bay Area. Um, and our mountains are covered in snow. If you lived in Big Bear and you drove Uber, I'm not quite sure you're getting a lot of rides right now, as the streets are just covered in snow and haven't been quite plowed yet, right? So consider the seasonality of the side gig that you're doing to know that money is certainly not regular, and it's going to be dependent upon the season. I'll give you another example. Sorry to use Uber for as an example, but it's fresh in my mind right now for whatever reason. Say you live close to, like I live in the Inland Empire, right? So I'm kind of close to Ontario Airport. You can get a lot of Uber rides due to the airport, taking people to the airport for their flights out and picking people up to take them home. But are people going to be doing a lot of travel during the winter when people's kids are going back to school? Maybe not. So there can be like a seasonality aspect of how often you'll get paid on that side job. Okay. There's also one-time income where we can categorize that as maybe like uh what could we let's categorize like one-time income as maybe like you received a check in the mail as a maybe you were in a class action lawsuit and you received money because you bought a Toyota Corolla years ago and the water pump didn't work and they sent everyone in the class action $65. That's one-time income that won't repeat, right? So going back to that tracking in the participant guide, you can use this scenario to understand how you can create an income log. It's going to be based on regular, unpredictable, seasonal, and one time. Feel free to fill it out for the categories that are relevant to you so that you can understand the money that you can have coming in and know the monthly amount of what that income looks like. So that takes care of section one. Um, section one was income based. We're going to get into expenses now. So quite different from income. Expenses is money that is going to be leaving your wallet, right? We're going to talk about how you track and manage. And then we're going to go over like needs, wants, obligations, and stuff like that. So key takeaway from this section: understand your expenses. It'll help you decide, how to save, share, spend the income that you have coming in. So what do people do with their money, right? You can go shopping, buy clothes. You can go to the grocery store, buy food, pay your rent. If you own a house, pay your mortgage, pay your car loan. You can have an unexpected um, uh, thing happen where the weather's been bad recently and you could have a leak in your roof and you need to get a patch, stuff like that. So thinking about expenses, especially considering like when weather's bad, get on the freeway, you hydroplane because it's raining really hard and you get into a fender bender. Expenses can be stressful, but as long as like we're mindful about the overall landscape of what it takes, like who's taking our money, it can be a little bit put you at ease kind of, but so just remember the different ways that money is going to leave your wallet. And it's probably easier than money coming out, to be quite honest with you, right? So think about how you use your money. You can save it, right? You can put it into a savings account. You can create an emergency fund account. You can use it to pay backup school expenses. You can use it for long time savings goals. You can use it to buy assets, investments, so on and so forth. You can share it. You can give someone $20 for their birthday. The other form of sharing in the form of, hey, you want to donate to your favorite charity, you want to give a donation to Home Again LA to support their programs and services. Um, you can spend it. We talked about food, utilities, mortgage, debts you owe. Maybe you have a credit card bill that needs to be paid. Um, Understanding the three categories, saving, sharing, spending, is easier to understand when we understand the difference between need, wants, and obligations. So needs are things that you must have to live, the things that you have to survive. Wants, on the other hand, are things that you can live without. One of the things I want right now, and I'm so adamant about it, and I told my wife I want to buy an ice cream maker. I know it's super specific, but I went over to my stepdaughter's house and she made me ice cream from scratch, and it was the best thing I've tasted in my life. So I want an ice cream maker, and I think I'm going to buy one on Amazon. So I definitely can live without it. I can just go buy ice cream from the grocery store for $4, but man, it tasted so good, right? Obligations, on the other hand, are debts that you owe, right? So borrowed money, car loan, mortgage, student debt, right? Um, Obligations are in the form of contractual agreements that you make. If you open a credit card, you sign a contract that says that you will pay that monthly bill for your credit card, right? One of the other things that we talked about earlier, on income coming in the form of garnishment. Here's the flip side of it, right? An expense would be something like if you owe child support, right? So if you receive public benefits, for people who receive public benefits, um, there one thing to be cognizant about is whether or not there's asset limits, that if you end up increasing your income too much, you could potentially lose that benefit, right? So it's important to monitor not only the expenses, understand the income, so that the various things in the form of, if I'm I may say, for example, you may not lose the entire benefit, but um, it'll be reduced, for example, right? Um, so tracking this could kind of hint towards whether or not, you know, that public benefit would be reduced or eliminated altogether, right? So tracking your expenses. So tracking your expenses helps you understand if you're using money in line with your needs and your wants, or think about it as like values and goals. Tracking expenses may also uncover where you can make changes. I bring this up all the time, and I have to because it's just the God's honest truth. Instead of spending $8 for Old Spice body wash, $1.25 at the dollar store, Wild Rain. I mean, seriously, I never even conceived that I could save so much money by switching my shampoo. One of the things I bring up a lot, I love coffee. Do I really need to spend $15 on my favorite coffee every time to make the coffee at home? Or can I just go to Trader Joe's, for example, and buy the $4.99 coffee? It's amazing. Like, you go through, seriously, download your statement from your checking account, start highlighting and going through the money that you usually spend, because I guarantee that you're going to be able to identify something that you can shave a couple of bucks off on. Another thing would be like, when's the last time I seriously used the streaming service? I have like a lot of streaming services we watch TV. I can't remember which one it was, and I'm thinking, how much are we paying for this? $9.99 a month? Do I need this? So yeah, download the statement, go through it. Like, if you're seriously spending $8 on something, can you get it somewhere else for $2? Like, I think you'd be surprised at where you can make changes. In this apply it, we have a spending diary where you're going through and you're identifying based on the expense and the amount. Is it a need? Is it a want? Is it an obligation? So after the workshop, feel free, download that statement from your checking account, like I was saying, list out expense examples, put the dollar amount, and identify if it's a need, want, or an obligation. And it'll also provide the framework to kind of help you start creating that monthly expense log. So managing your expenses, will also help you avoid unnecessary late fees and knowing your payment dates, like if you have credit card debt, when you need to make that payment, because late fees can be like so expensive, right? Interest on unpaid balances. When's the last time you looked or understood the interest that you're charged on your credit card? Mine's like 27%. It's outrageous. Another thing that we want to do in tracking our expenses is to avoid negative credit report entries because those items can be on your credit for a particularly long time. And in order to get them removed, you're going to have to write a letter to get them removed, right? Additional charges associated with loss of services, or how about this, right? Like if we miss utility bill payment and they shut off the electricity, for example, not only do we get our electricity shut off, is there something that I have to pay now to restart the service? There's probably a restart fee too, so just keep that in mind. So different ways to pay certain bills, right? In person, you can pay with cash, money order, check, debit card, or credit card for certain bills, depending on what they are. You can pay by mail. May take a little bit longer than doing it in person, but you can pay in the form of a check, money order, or cashier's check. Um, One nice thing about if you have to send a check in the mail is that if it's lost, you can put a stop payment on it and you can reissue it. Where like don't put cash in the mail. If it's lost, it's gone, right? You can also make payments electronically, which are secure. They can be set up as one time. They can be set up as recurring on a regular schedule, whether it be weekly, monthly, or however your payment needs to be done. The other way that you can make payments are through mobile apps. Again, this could be a one-time payment. Sometimes you can go into a mobile payment to set up a recurring payment as well. But no matter how you pay your bills, I just want to say, make sure that you're paying them on time to avoid all those service charges and those fees that could be associated to them. And one like clear way to avoid those fees and those late fees is don't do the in-person, don't do the by mail. If you set it up electronically with a recurring payment, you'll be rest assured to have to avoid late fees if they happen, right? So in the participant guide, right? So in this, we talk about how Juan Carlo uses a monthly payment calendar to understand what bills he has and when they're paid. You can go through this exercise, maybe set up a similar thing. Um, I don't know if you use Outlook on Microsoft for your email, but you can use that calendar, Google Calendar. If you have Apple, I'm sure they have a calendar. I'll tell you one thing that my wife does is she has a physical paper calendar that hangs up on the side of the fridge that has everything that needs to be paid written out on the day. She's old school. You can do it that way too. Um, yeah. So key takeaway for our section where remember section one was income coming in and understanding that. Key takeaway section two is understanding what expenses are and how you're going to do those three things that we talked about: save, share, and spend. And with those three S's and understanding if we know what the difference between our needs, wants, and obligations, it can help us better inform us on how we can do the three S's of save, share, and spend. That brings us to the end. Feel free to unmute yourself or put in the chat if you have any questions on income and expenses. I'd be happy to answer.
I don't think we have any questions unless anybody else does. Lisa earlier just mentioned that she just spends her money too early.
Oh yeah, that's another thing too. Like I get it and it's gone. I mean, I do that too. I gotta be honest with you. Like when I get paid on Fridays, I have this tendency to go to Trader Joe's and buy things that are probably wants. Like I found a new chocolate bar over there I like that I bought last week. Like seriously, I don't need that, but hey, I do it. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. I had a question actually. I don't know if there's like maybe or maybe if I should check with like a tax person or not, but is there maybe like a percentage or something that you would recommend people setting aside if they file like 1099s?
Yeah, see, here's the crazy thing. So I can't say for certain. I would definitely check with a tax
Okay.
professional. This is why. As far as the tax withholdings that we were talking about on the W-4, I can't give a recommendation on a proper withholding because we're all going to be in different tax brackets.
Mm,
So based on your taxable income and the bracket that you fall within, um, would inform you on how much withholding should be or how less they should be. If you're in a high tax bracket where you know you're going to owe at the end of the year, you may want to increase those withholdings on your W-4 because you're in a tax bracket where you have to pay.
okay.
And the thing I'll say about a 1099 is that 1099s are taxed way differently than a W-2. I am
Mm,
not a professional, but my understanding is that 1099s are taxed at a rate of like 30 to 40%, which is a lot different than a W-2. So
mm,
anytime you receive a 1099 for employment, it's taxed a lot higher. Just like you're taxed a lot higher if you own your own business and you do your self-employment tax. To my understanding, it's higher too. So I
mm.
honestly don't know like the proper percentage and how to balance it.
Okay. Noted. All right. So just a little a little bit about me right now, just gonna let you guys know. I've been tracking my pay stubs. So I've been kind of checking and kind of, monitoring that. So I'm glad that you brought it up. And then also monitoring like vacation time and things like that is also useful for me. So I definitely encourage you guys to also kind of do the same if you can.
Yeah, it's so smart. Like the reason I brought up the PTO and the sick time is because it's fresh in my mind right now. I'm trying to do better for myself to take some more days off to kind of just
Mm,
refresh, relax, like take some time away from work and go. Like one of my hobbies, I really love to go to the park play basketball. So like I've been taking some days off, go do some hoops for a while, maybe ride my bike just to like reset, right? So one of the things I've been doing recently has been I've been taking like every other Friday off, which is
good,
something I've never done. So
good.
I've been having to pay attention to it on my pay stub, which I've
Yeah.
been doing because I accrue a certain amount of time a paycheck, and I want to make sure that with that new strategy of taking every other Friday off, if I want to take a vacation in March, April, whatever during the summer, I want to make sure I have enough accrued that I'm good to go. So
Mm-hmm.
now I look at that every pay period.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's
Smart.
important.
Yeah, it's important, really important, and also really important to give yourself some time and space to go,
Yeah,
de-stress. Yeah, that's
right.
important. All right. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. So our next session with Tom is going to be on February 22nd. Let's see here, February 22nd. And the topic is your spending and savings. So you guys can join us then, Thursday, February 22nd at 6 p.m. All right. Please feel free to share the information if you know others who may benefit from the session. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Tom.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
You too. Bye.
Bye.